Part 1. The sky above Earth turned dark as massive alien ships descended from space. These ships were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Giant, insect-like structures with jagged edges and glowing veins running through their surfaces. They moved silently, casting shadows over entire cities as they positioned themselves in orbit. People watched in shock and fear, unsure of what was happening or why these strange visitors had come. For years, humans had dreamed about meeting extraterrestrial life. Books, movies, and science fiction stories painted pictures of peaceful encounters or epic battles between species. But no one expected this. This wasn't exploration or curiosity. It felt like an invasion. And not just any invasion. It seemed more like extermination. The ships didn't communicate, negotiate, or even scan the planet. Instead, they began deploying swarms of smaller craft that rained down on Earth's surface like locusts. Captain John Riley stood at the edge of a military airfield, staring up at the ominous shapes in the sky. He was a pilot who had flown missions all over the world. His experience made him calm under pressure, but even he couldn't hide the unease in his eyes. Around him, soldiers rushed to prepare aircraft and defensive systems, though everyone knew conventional weapons might not be enough against whatever these aliens were. Nearby, Dr. Laura Hayes hurried toward a makeshift command center. She was an astrobiologist, someone who studied the possibility of life beyond Earth. Her expertise suddenly became crucial when reports came in about the alien ships. Governments around the globe scrambled to assemble teams of scientists, hoping someone could figure out what these beings wanted or how to stop them. As the first wave of alien drones touched down, panic spread across cities. Buildings crumbled under the weight of the machines, which moved with eerie precision. They weren't attacking randomly. They targeted power plants, communication hubs, and military bases. It was clear they intended to cripple humanity's ability to fight back quickly. Civilians fled in droves, abandoning homes and possessions in search of safety. Roads jammed with cars, while others chose to stay behind, unwilling to leave everything they'd built. In Chicago, Emily Dawson worked frantically in her garage-turned-workshop. A skilled mechanic, she had spent most of her life fixing cars and machinery. Now she used those skills to modify vehicles for survivors trying to escape the city. Her younger brother, Daniel, helped her whenever he could. Though only 18, Daniel had already proven himself resourceful and brave. Together, they formed part of a growing resistance movement determined to stand against the invaders. Back at the airfield, Captain Riley received orders to lead a squadron into battle against the alien forces. Pilots climbed into their jets knowing full well they might not return. As engines roared to life, Riley glanced at the horizon. The sun should have been rising by now, but the alien ships blocked out its light, leaving the world shrouded in twilight. Meanwhile, inside the command center, Dr. Hayes pored over data collected from the few drones shot down during early skirmishes. Each piece of wreckage revealed new mysteries. The materials used to construct the drones defied known physics. They were stronger than steel, yet lighter than aluminum. More unsettling was the discovery that the drones appeared to lack traditional circuitry or programming. Instead, they seemed controlled by some kind of biological network. "This isn't just technology," Laura muttered to herself as she examined a fragment of alien material under a microscope. "It's alive." Her words sent chills down the spines of those listening nearby. If the aliens truly merged biology and machinery, then humanity faced an enemy far more advanced than anyone anticipated. Hours passed, and the situation grew worse. Entire regions lost electricity as the alien forces dismantled power grids. Communication networks collapsed, isolating communities from one another. Despair crept into people's hearts as they realized help might never arrive. Yet amidst the chaos, acts of courage emerged. Neighbors banded together to protect each other. Strangers risked their lives to save children caught in collapsing buildings. Humanity refused to give up without a fight. At the same time, governments struggled to maintain order. Emergency broadcasts urged citizens to remain calm and follow instructions, but trust eroded quickly. Rumors spread faster than facts, fueling paranoia and unrest. Some claimed the aliens sought revenge for humanity's mistreatment of Earth. Others believed this was divine punishment for centuries of war and greed. Whatever the truth, one thing remained certain: survival would require unity and ingenuity. By nightfall, Captain Riley's squadron returned from their mission battered but alive. They hadn't destroyed many drones, but they had managed to capture one intact. Scientists immediately transported the drone to a secure facility, where Dr. Hayes led efforts to study it. Every second counted. Understanding the enemy's weaknesses could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. As the world braced for what came next, hope flickered faintly in the darkness. Humanity had always adapted, always persevered. Even now, ordinary men and women rose to meet extraordinary challenges. From pilots like John Riley to scientists like Laura Hayes, from mechanics like Emily Dawson to young fighters like Daniel, countless individuals contributed to the struggle. Though outnumbered and outmatched, they refused to surrender. Above them, the alien armada loomed ominously, its purpose still unclear. But deep within human hearts burned a stubborn determination, a refusal to let this be the end. For better or worse, humanity had met its greatest challenge yet. And though the outcome remained uncertain, one truth stood undeniable. The Hive had conquered every world until it met humanity. What happened next would determine whether Earth joined the list of fallen planets or became the exception that proved the rule. Part 2. The captured drone sat in the center of a brightly lit laboratory, its metallic surface gleaming under harsh fluorescent lights. Scientists buzzed around it like worker bees, taking measurements, running tests, and documenting every detail they could uncover. It was smaller than expected, about the size of a large dog, but its intricate design hinted at unimaginable complexity. The alien machine didn't move or make any sound, yet everyone in the room felt uneasy, as if it might spring to life at any moment. Dr. Laura Hayes stood closest to the drone, her eyes scanning its smooth exterior for clues. She wore a white lab coat smeared with grease and dirt from hours of nonstop work. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted a handheld scanner, trying to penetrate the strange material that made up the drone's shell. So far, their efforts had yielded little useful information. Whatever this thing was, it defied everything humanity knew about technology or biology. Nearby, Captain John Riley leaned against a wall, arms crossed, watching the scientists work. Though he wasn't trained in science, his presence brought a sense of calm to the team. He'd seen combat zones where chaos reigned, but nothing compared to the tension in this room. Each passing minute felt heavier than the last, knowing that outside, more drones continued their relentless assault on Earth. "We need answers," John said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was firm but measured, a reminder that time was not on their side. "If we can't figure out how these things work, we're just wasting resources." Laura glanced up at him briefly before returning her focus to the drone. "It's not easy," she replied, frustration creeping into her tone. "This isn't like anything we've ever encountered. It's part machine, part something else, maybe even alive." Her words sent another ripple of unease through the room. Alive? How could a drone be alive? Machines were tools built by intelligent beings to serve specific purposes. But this thing seemed different. Its movements during battles hadn't been mechanical, they were fluid, almost instinctual. And now, sitting motionless, it gave off an aura of waiting as if biding its time. As the scientists worked, Laura decided to try something new. She connected electrodes to the drone's surface, hoping to detect some kind of electrical activity. To her surprise, the device registered faint signals, patterns unlike anything she'd seen before. They weren't random bursts of energy but rhythmic pulses, almost like a heartbeat. She shared her findings with the team, who gathered around eagerly. "It's communicating," one of the junior researchers whispered, awe evident in his voice. "But with what?" Laura frowned. "Not with us. With its hive, maybe. We know. These drones don't act independently. They're all part of a larger system. If we can disrupt that connection..." Her sentence trailed off, but everyone understood what she meant. If they could sever the link between the drones and whatever controlled them, they might stand a chance. But doing so would require understanding the nature of that connection and finding a way to interfere with it. While the scientists focused on the drone, news poured in from across the globe. Cities burned as the alien forces advanced without mercy. Reports described horrifying scenes: swarms of drones overwhelming military units, civilians crushed under collapsing buildings, entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble. Resistance fighters tried to hold their ground, but their weapons proved ineffective against the invaders' superior strength and coordination. In Chicago, Emily Dawson and her brother Daniel joined a group of survivors determined to fight back. Armed with makeshift weapons crafted from scrap metal and spare parts R3. The bunker was cramped and dimly lit, its walls lined with shelves stacked high with supplies and equipment salvaged from abandoned facilities. The air smelled of damp concrete and sweat, a constant reminder of the desperate situation humanity found itself in. Inside, the group huddled around a table covered in maps, diagrams, and Laura's hastily written notes. Each face bore the weight of exhaustion, but their eyes burned with determination. "We can't keep running," John said firmly, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "Every second we waste gives them more time to destroy what's left of Earth." Laura nodded, her fingers tracing lines on one of the maps. "He's right. If we're going to stop them, we need to hit them where it hurts, their central hub. That's the source of their hive mind." "But how?" Emily asked, leaning forward. Her hands were dirty from hours of tinkering with scavenged parts, and her hair stuck to her forehead in sweaty strands. "We barely survived the last attack. How are we supposed to get close enough to do anything?" "That's the problem," Laura admitted, her tone heavy with frustration. "Their hubs are heavily guarded. Getting inside won't be easy, but if we don't try, we'll lose everything." Daniel, sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up for the first time. "What about disguises, like pretending to be one of them?" Everyone turned to look at him, surprised by the suggestion. Laura tilted her head thoughtfully. "It's not a bad idea," she said slowly. "If we can replicate their signal or mimic their appearance, maybe we can infiltrate without being detected." John raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly do we pull that off? We don't even fully understand their technology." Laura hesitated before answering. "We use what we've learned so far. The drone we captured had a receiver tuned to a specific frequency. If we can build a device that mimics that signal, we might fool the hive into thinking we belong." The room fell silent as the weight of the plan settled over them. It was risky, perhaps impossible, but they had no other options. They couldn't fight the hive head-on, and surrender wasn't an option either. Humanity's survival depended on taking bold action. Over the next few days, the group worked tirelessly to prepare. Laura led the effort to construct a makeshift transmitter capable of broadcasting the hive's frequency. Using parts salvaged from the captured drone and scraps scavenged by Emily and Daniel, they pieced together a crude but functional prototype. Meanwhile, John trained the others in stealth tactics, teaching them how to move quietly and avoid detection. Emily proved particularly skilled at modifying gear. She transformed old radio transmitters into portable devices that could emit the hive's signal. Though skeptical at first, even John had to admit her ingenuity gave them a fighting chance. Daniel, meanwhile, helped assemble weapons from whatever materials they could find. While rudimentary, these tools would give them some defense if things went wrong. As the preparations neared completion, tensions ran high. None of them knew whether the plan would work, or if they'd make it back alive. Still, they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that failure meant extinction. On the morning of the mission, the team gathered outside the bunker. The sky above was overcast, clouds heavy with rain threatening to burst open at any moment. John stood at the front, addressing the group one last time. "This is it," he said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty looming ahead. "Once we step out there, there's no turning back. Stick to the plan, watch each other's backs, and remember why we're doing this. For Earth. For everyone counting on us." No one spoke as they loaded into a battered transport vehicle. The engine sputtered to life, coughing smoke into the cold air before rumbling forward. Their destination lay miles away, an enormous alien mothership hovering over Europe, its shadow stretching across entire cities below. The journey was long and nerve-wracking. Every sound, every movement seemed amplified in the tense atmosphere. At one point, they passed through a village reduced to rubble, its streets littered with debris and abandoned belongings. The sight served as a grim reminder of what was at stake. When they finally reached the outskirts of the mothership's landing zone, the team disembarked cautiously. Towering structures loomed ahead, pulsating faintly with an eerie green light. Strange tendrils snaked along the ground, connecting everything to the massive ship like veins feeding a monstrous heart. The air buzzed with energy, making their skin prickle uncomfortably. "Remember," Laura whispered as they activated their makeshift transmitters. "Stay calm, stay quiet, and follow my lead." With bated breath, they moved forward, blending into the flow of drones swarming around. The area, miraculously, the disguise worked, at least for now. None of the drones paid them any attention as they slipped deeper into the Hive's domain. Inside, the environment grew stranger. Walls seemed to breathe, shifting slightly as if alive. Lights pulsed rhythmically, matching the beat Laura had detected earlier. The further they ventured, the more oppressive the atmosphere became, pressing down on them like a physical weight. Finally, they reached what appeared to be the core, a pulsating orb suspended in midair, surrounded by layers of biomechanical defenses. Tendrils writhed around it, feeding it energy harvested from Earth itself. This was the heart of the hive mind, the source of its power. Laura stared at it, her mind racing. Disrupting the core would sever the connection between the drones and the collective consciousness controlling them, but doing so required getting closer and risking exposure. "We need to act fast," she murmured, glancing at the others. "Are you ready?" John nodded grimly. "Let's finish this." As they prepared to execute their plan, none of them noticed the faint flicker in the core's glow. Somewhere deep within the hive mind, something stirred, a spark of awareness, detecting the intruder's presence. Time was running out. Part 4. The team stood frozen, staring at the pulsating orb in front of them. It hung suspended in the air, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light that shifted between shades of green and blue. Thick tendrils snaked around it, connecting it to the walls and floor like roots feeding a tree. The core was both beautiful and terrifying, a living machine that seemed to breathe and pulse with energy. Laura felt her heart pounding as she stepped closer, her makeshift transmitter humming softly in her pocket. "This is it," she whispered, glancing back at the others. "If we can disrupt this, we might be able to break their control." John nodded but kept his eyes scanning the area. The room was eerily quiet except for the soft hum of the core and the occasional creak of shifting tendrils. None of the drones had noticed them yet, but John knew that could change in an instant. They needed to act quickly before something or someone detected their presence. Laura pulled out a small device she'd built using parts from the captured drone. It looked crude compared to the alien technology surrounding them, but it was their best chance. She adjusted a few dials on the device, trying to match its frequency to the one emitted by the core. Her hands trembled slightly, and she took a deep breath to steady herself. "All right," she said finally, her voice barely audible. "I'm going to try to connect to the core. Once I do, it should destabilize the signal for a short time. That's when we make our move." "What happens after that?" Emily asked, clutching a wrench tightly in her hand. She had insisted on bringing tools just in case they needed to improvise. "We run," John answered bluntly. "As fast and as far as we can. If this works, the drones will lose coordination and we'll have a window to escape. But if it doesn't..." He didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood what he meant. Failure wasn't an option. Not here, not now. Laura carefully approached the core, holding the device up toward it. As she got closer, the tendrils began to twitch, almost as if they sensed her presence. She hesitated for a moment, then pressed a button on the device. A low whine filled the air as the gadget activated, emitting a faint vibration that resonated with the core's energy field. For a second, nothing happened. Then, the orb flickered. The reaction was immediate. The tendrils around the core tightened, writhing violently as if in pain. Lights along the walls dimmed and flared unpredictably, casting strange shadows across the room. Drones stationed nearby suddenly stopped moving, their heads tilting in unison as if confused. One of them turned toward the group, its mechanical eyes glowing brighter. "They're onto us," Daniel shouted, raising his makeshift weapon. "Keep going," John barked, stepping forward to shield Laura. He fired a shot at the approaching drone, hitting it square in the chest. The impact caused the machine to stagger but not fall. Its movements became erratic, jerky, as though its connection to the hive mind had been disrupted. Laura ignored the chaos around her, focusing all her attention on the device. She adjusted another dial, increasing the frequency until the whine grew louder. The core pulsed wildly now, its glow shifting rapidly between colors. Tendrils lashed out blindly, smashing into walls and sending chunks of debris raining down. "We're destabilizing it," Laura yelled over the noise. "Just a little longer." Emily grabbed a piece of fallen metal and hurled it at a drone advancing on them. The impact knocked the machine off balance, giving Daniel enough time to smash its head with his weapon. Sparks flew as the drone collapsed, its body twitching before going still. But more were coming. Dozens of drones poured into the chamber, drawn by the disturbance. Their movements were slower and... Part 5. The transport vehicle bounced violently over the uneven terrain as John pushed it to its limits, desperate to put as much distance as possible between them and the collapsing mothership. Behind them, the sky lit up with fiery streaks, as chunks of debris rained down, crashing into the earth with deafening booms. Each explosion sent shockwaves rippling through the air, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Despite the chaos, no one spoke. The team sat in silence, their faces pale and streaked with dirt, their bodies trembling from exhaustion. Laura leaned back against her seat, clutching the makeshift device she had used to disrupt the core. Her hands were still shaking, not just from fatigue, but from the enormity of what they had done. She stared out the window at the burning wreckage above, her mind racing. Had they truly broken the hive's control? Or had they only delayed the inevitable? The thought weighed heavily on her, though she forced herself to focus on the present. "We need to find shelter," John said finally, breaking the tense quiet. His voice was hoarse but firm, a reminder that survival came first. "That ship is coming apart and those pieces are going to hit hard. We can't stay out here," Emily nodded, wiping sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. "There's an old bunker a few miles east of here," she said. "We passed it on the way in. It's not much, but it'll keep us safe until things settle." John glanced at her briefly before returning his attention to the road. "Good, let's head there." The journey felt endless, every second stretching longer than the last. The vehicle groaned under the strain, its engine sputtering as if it might give out at any moment. But somehow it held together, carrying them closer to safety. As they drove, Daniel kept watch through the rear window, scanning the horizon for signs of danger. So far, none of the drones had followed them, but he knew better than to let his guard down. When they finally reached the bunker, relief washed over them like a wave. The structure was half buried in the ground, its metal door rusted but intact. Emily hopped out first, prying it open with a crowbar while the others stood ready to defend themselves. Inside, the air was musty and stale, but it offered protection from the falling debris outside. Once everyone was inside, John sealed the door behind them, plunging the space into darkness. Someone flicked on a flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom. The bunker wasn't large, just a single room stocked with dusty supplies. But it was enough. For now, they collapsed onto the floor, too tired to do anything but rest. Laura leaned against a wall, closing her eyes as she replayed the events of the past hours in her mind. Disrupting the core had been a gamble, but it seemed to have worked, at least temporarily. Without the hive mind guiding them, The drones had lost coordination, leaving humanity with a rare opportunity to strike back. Still, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't seen the last of the aliens. Meanwhile, John paced the small space, his thoughts consumed by strategy. Breaking the connection between the drones and the hive mind was a victory, but it wouldn't be enough to win the war. Humanity needed more than scattered resistance efforts, it needed unity. He turned to Emily, who was sorting through the supplies they'd brought with them. "What about the others?" he asked. "The people fighting back in the cities. Do you think they know what happened?" Emily shrugged, brushing dust off a can of food. "Hard to say, communication's been spotty since the invasion started. Even if they notice the drones acting weird, they might not realize why." John frowned. "Then we need to spread the word. If we can get the message out that the hive's control has been weakened, it could rally the survivors. Maybe even turn the tide." Laura looked up, her expression thoughtful. "It's risky. If we start broadcasting our location, we risk drawing attention, not just from the drones, but from whatever's left of the hive itself." "But isn't that worth it?" Daniel interjected, his voice tinged with frustration. "We've got a chance to fight back now, to actually win. Are we really going to waste it hiding in a bunker?" No one answered immediately. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. They all wanted revenge for what the hive had done, to reclaim their world and rebuild. But they also knew the cost of failure. Every decision carried risks, and lives depended on getting it right. After a long pause, Laura spoke. "Daniel's right. Hiding won't save us. But neither will rushing in blindly. We need a plan, a real one this time. Something that gives humanity a fighting chance without exposing us to unnecessary danger." John nodded slowly. "All right. Here's what we'll do. First, we gather intel, find out how widespread the effects of the core disruption are. Then, we identify key areas where we can hit the hive hardest. And finally, we coordinate with other resistance groups. If we can unite everyone under one banner, we stand a better chance." The group agreed, though none of them underestimated the challenges ahead. Rebuilding communication networks would take time and resources they barely had. Convincing fractured factions to work together would be even harder. But they had no choice. This was humanity's moment to rise, or fall. Over the next few days, they set to work. Emily tinkered with salvaged radios, trying to boost their range so they could reach other survivors. Daniel scouted the surrounding area, mapping potential targets for future attacks. Laura studied the data they'd collected during the mission, searching for patterns or weaknesses in the hive's remaining forces, and John coordinated everything, ensuring they stayed focused and prepared for whatever came next. Their efforts paid off sooner than expected. One evening, as Emily adjusted the frequency on her modified radio, a faint voice crackled through the static. "Anyone out there? This is Samuel Brooks." She froze, her heart skipping a beat. "Guys," she called out, her voice trembling with excitement. "I think I've got someone." Everyone rushed over, crowding around the radio as Emily fine-tuned the signal. The voice grew clearer, repeating the same message over and over. It belonged to a man named Samuel Brooks, who claimed to lead a coalition of resistance fighters in North America. He described how drones had suddenly become disorganized, giving his group a chance to push back against the invaders. "This is incredible," Laura whispered, her eyes wide with hope. "If he's seeing the same thing we are, then the disruption worked. The hive's control is breaking down everywhere." John grabbed the microphone, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "This is Captain John Riley. We're a small team that managed to disable part of the hive's central hub. Can you confirm your location?" There was a brief pause before the response came. "Captain Riley, you don't know how glad I am to hear from you. Our forces are stretched thin, but we're holding strong. Tell me, what's your plan?" For the first time in weeks, John allowed himself a small smile. "Our plan is simple," he replied. "We fight back, together." As the conversation continued, details began to emerge. Samuel's group had established a network of safe zones across the continent, providing refuge for survivors and serving as bases for counterattacks. With their help, John and his team could expand their reach, coordinating strikes against the Hive's remaining strongholds. But even as hope grew, reminders of the stakes loomed large. Outside the bunker, the world remained scarred and broken. Cities lay in ruins, their streets deserted except for the occasional patrol of confused drones. Survivors clung to life, eking out existences in the shadows of devastation. And somewhere beyond Earth's atmosphere, fragments of the Hive drifted, silently, waiting. Laura couldn't shake the image of the core, the way it had pulsed and shuddered before collapsing. She wondered if they had truly severed the Hive's connection, or merely damaged it. What if the Hive could adapt? What if it already was? Despite these fears, she pushed forward, driven by the belief that humanity deserved a future. Together, she and the others poured their energy into preparing for the battles ahead. They trained, planned, and strategized, knowing that every step brought them closer to freedom, or annihilation. And so, in the depths of a hidden bunker, a spark of defiance burned brightly. Against all odds, humanity had struck a blow against the greatest threat it had ever faced. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, but one truth remained clear. The Hive had conquered every world, until it met humanity. Now it was humanity's turn to prove it wouldn't go down without a fight. Part 6. The resistance grew stronger with each passing day. Samuel Brooks's coalition provided a lifeline, connecting scattered groups of survivors and fighters into a unified force. Through his leadership, humanity began to push back against the Hive's remnants. Messages traveled across makeshift radio networks, spreading news of victories, small at first but growing in significance. The disruption of the Hive mind had weakened the aliens' coordination, giving humans a rare advantage they hadn't dared to dream of before. In the bunker, John and his team worked tirelessly to support the effort. Emily spent hours modifying weapons and equipment, turning scraps of metal and salvaged parts into tools that could rival the Hive's technology. Her ingenuity earned her praise from everyone, though she brushed off compliments modestly. "It's just what I do," she'd say with a shrug, even as Daniel teased her about being their secret weapon. Laura focused on analyzing the data they'd gathered during their infiltration of the mothership. She studied fragments of alien material, searching for patterns or weaknesses. Part 7. The victory at the stronghold was a turning point, but it didn't mean the war was over. The Hive still had resources and forces scattered across the planet, and its ability to adapt made it a relentless enemy. Yet, for the first time in months, humanity felt a glimmer of hope. Survivors worked together to rebuild what they could, patching up homes, restoring power grids, and tending to the injured. It wasn't much, but it was progress. In the days following the assault, Samuel Brooks traveled between safe zones, rallying people to keep pushing forward. His speeches inspired even the most skeptical survivors, reminding them that every small effort mattered. "We've taken one step," he often said. "Now we need to take another and another, until we stand on solid ground again." John Riley and his team joined these efforts, helping wherever they were needed. Emily and Daniel repaired machinery and vehicles, ensuring fighters had reliable tools for future battles. Laura shared her research with other scientists, pooling knowledge to better understand the Hive's biology and weaknesses. And John coordinated with military leaders, planning strategies to dismantle the remaining alien strongholds. But challenges remained. Supplies were running low and food shortages became a growing concern. Many survivors struggled to find clean water or shelter, especially in areas heavily damaged by the invasion. Disease spread among crowded refugee camps, overwhelming makeshift hospitals. Despite their successes, the weight of these problems tested humanity's resolve. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Laura sat alone in a quiet corner of a safe zone, staring at a map covered in notes and markings. Her mind raced with questions. How many more cores were out there? Could they truly defeat the Hive? Or would it always find a way to recover? She sighed, rubbing her temples. The burden of responsibility pressed down on her, heavier than ever. "You look like you're carrying the world on your shoulders," a voice said softly. She glanced up to see John standing nearby holding 2 cups of tea. He handed her one and sat down beside her. "Thanks," she murmured, taking a sip. The warmth helped ease some of the tension in her chest. "We're doing everything we can," John said after a moment. "That's all anyone can ask for." "I know," Laura replied. "But sometimes I wonder if it's enough. What if we miss something? What if we make a mistake that costs us everything?" John leaned back, gazing at the stars above. "We'll make mistakes, probably already have, but giving up isn't an option. Even if we fail, we'll have fought harder than anyone thought possible. That has to count for something." His words stayed with her long after he left. They reminded her why she'd chosen this path, to give humanity a fighting chance, no matter how slim the odds. Meanwhile, Emily and Daniel faced new challenges of their own. Their skills had earned them respect within the Resistance, but the constant pressure began to wear on them. Late nights spent repairing equipment turned into early mornings preparing for missions. Sleep was rare, and exhaustion gnawed at their edges. Still, they refused to slow down. When a group of scouts reported discovering a hidden Hive facility buried deep underground, Emily volunteered to join the team tasked with investigating it. Daniel insisted on going too, unwilling to let his sister face danger alone. The mission proved more difficult than expected. The facility was guarded by advanced drones unlike any they'd encountered before, faster, stronger, and seemingly immune to the disruptions caused by Laura's device. Worse, the tunnels twisted and turned unpredictably, making navigation nearly impossible. As they ventured deeper, Emily noticed strange patterns etched into the walls, symbols glowing faintly in the dim light. "What do you think those are?" she whispered, pointing to one. Daniel frowned, studying it closely. "Looks like writing, or maybe instructions. Do you think the Hive uses these to communicate?" Before Emily could respond, a loud screech echoed through the tunnel. Moments later, a swarm of drones descended upon them, forcing the team to retreat hastily. Several members were injured during the escape, and they barely made it back alive. Despite the setback, Emily refused to give up. She sketched the symbols from memory, determined to decipher their meaning. If the Hive used these markings to guide its forces, understanding them might provide a key advantage. Back at the safe zone, Laura examined Emily's sketches, comparing them to data from earlier studies. To her surprise, the symbols matched patterns she'd seen in the core's energy fluctuations. "These aren't just instructions," she realized aloud. "They're coordinates, maps leading to other facilities." With this discovery, the Resistance gained a crucial edge. Teams began targeting locations marked by the symbols, dismantling Hive operations one by one. Each success brought them closer to reclaiming Earth. Yet, amid the victories, tragedy struck. During an attack on a heavily fortified site, Samuel Brooks was gravely wounded while shielding a group of civilians. Though medics rushed him to safety, his condition worsened rapidly. News of his injury spread quickly, casting a shadow over the Resistance. On his deathbed, Samuel summoned John and Laura to his side. His voice was weak but steady as he spoke. "You've done well," he said, managing a faint smile. "But don't stop now. Keep fighting, for everyone who believes in you." When Samuel passed away, silence fell over the safe zones. Flags flew at half-mast and fires burned in his honor. His loss hit everyone hard, but it also strengthened their resolve. He had given them hope when they had none, and now they vowed to carry that hope forward. Under John's leadership, the Resistance regrouped and pushed ahead. New leaders emerged, stepping up to fill the void Samuel left behind. Together, they launched a final campaign aimed at eradicating the Hive once and for all. Months passed, and humanity clawed its way back from the brink. Cities slowly came back to life. Fields were replanted and children played outside without fear for the first time in years. The scars of war remained visible everywhere, but so did signs of renewal. Finally, the day arrived when the last Hive stronghold fell. Exhausted fighters gathered around roaring bonfires, celebrating their hard-won freedom. Tears streamed down faces as strangers embraced, united by shared sacrifice and triumph. Laura stood apart from the crowd, gazing at the night sky. Somewhere beyond the stars, fragments of the hive drifted silently, waiting. She knew this wasn't truly the end. The hive might return someday, but for now, humanity had won. Beside her, John placed a hand on her shoulder. "We did it," he said quietly. "Against all odds, we did it." Laura nodded, a small smile breaking through her fatigue. "Yeah," she replied. "And next time, we'll be ready." Above them, the stars twinkled brightly, witnesses to humanity's resilience. The hive had conquered every world until it met humanity, and humanity refused to yield. Part 8. Months passed since the final stronghold fell, and Earth began to heal. The scars of war remained visible, shattered cities, burned forests, and empty fields where crops once grew. But life found a way to return. Survivors worked together to rebuild, their spirits buoyed by the knowledge that they had triumphed over an enemy thought unbeatable. Humanity's resilience shone brighter than ever, proof that even in the darkest times, hope could light the way. Emily Dawson stood on the roof of what used to be her family's garage, now converted into a workshop, for repairing vehicles and tools. She wiped grease from her hands onto a rag, squinting at the horizon. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. It felt strange to see such beauty after so much destruction. Beside her, Daniel leaned against the railing, his arms crossed as he gazed silently at the view. "You think we'll ever get back to how things were?" Daniel asked finally, breaking the quiet. Emily shook her head. "No, things will never be the same. But maybe that's okay. We've got a chance to start fresh, to do better this time." Daniel nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in his eyes. What if they come back? What if the hive isn't really gone? "They might," Emily admitted. "But if they do, we'll be ready. We've learned a lot from all this. Next time we'll hit them harder." Her words carried confidence, but deep down she shared Daniel's unease. The hive's remnants still drifted among the stars, silent and watchful. No one knew whether the aliens would regroup or attempt another invasion. For now, humanity enjoyed its fragile peace, but vigilance remained essential. Across the globe, communities banded together to create new systems of governance and cooperation. Old borders dissolved, replaced by alliances based on mutual survival rather than competition. Samuel Brooks's vision of unity lived on through these efforts, inspiring leaders to prioritize collaboration over division. In his honor, survivors named schools, hospitals, and public spaces after him, ensuring his legacy endured. John Riley played a key role in shaping this new world. He helped establish training programs for fighters and engineers, teaching them skills needed to defend Earth against future threats. Though reluctant to take credit for their victories, others saw him as a symbol of strength and perseverance. His calm demeanor and unwavering determination earned him respect wherever he went. Laura Hayes dedicated herself to studying the hive's biology and technology, determined to unlock its secrets fully. Her research led to breakthroughs in medicine, energy production, and environmental restoration. By adapting alien materials and methods, scientists developed solutions to problems humanity had faced for centuries.